Hello, my dear friends of wonderful music and wonderful music of Mr. Bill Frisell in particular. I'm Tom Schulz, I'm working in the Elbphilharmonie, and I'm also welcoming all the people who are watching us from afar with this live stream, or maybe later on. And I hope we will have a great and wonderful time. I just want to thank, of course, Bill for taking the time to come and dedicate some of his precious time to share it with us. And I want to be very frank, this is for me also kind of a very personal situation because Bill and I, we are 7 years apart in age. One advantage that means for him is that he listened to Jimi Hendrix play live, which I couldn't because he died in 1970 and I was just 12 years old, so I had no real chance. I could have gone to Fehmarn, but it was out of the question back then. So I never heard him, but you heard him. And thing is that actually in my earlier years, when I wasn't working here, I was working as a journalist. I was doing radio, I was always writing about music, which is my big love. Basically, as a listener, I also studied some music, but I never really performed in a serious way. And back then, in the early 80s, I was writing for a city magazine called Szene Hamburg, which is like a monthly, a little bit like a Time Out or something. You know, people would buy it and they would just find, oh, where do we go tonight? What's on? What's interesting to watch or to listen to? And there was one section with record reviews. And I had just begun writing on a more or less regular basis about music. And one of the very first reviews I ever wrote was about In Line, which appeared 40 years ago, which is totally crazy. Really crazy for me to imagine that. Of course, it's long ago, you know, but what has happened in between is just incredible in so many ways. Bill has been here many times before, as you will all know. I mean, he has done wonderful things with his trio, accompanying Buster Keaton silent movies. It was hilariously funny and so on the spot. It was wonderful. In the Grand Hall, he was playing with his own quartet without any imagery behind, and Bill was here with John Zorn just, I think it was last year, 22, wasn't it, in February, March? In various formations of John's music. And so we would meet each other backstage for a little wink or so, but we never really spoke. We never did an interview together. It's utterly personal for me to finally sit with you after 40 years of knowing you so well. Plus, to round that up, in the last days, I was a bit sick and I had a little more time than usual, and I was just heavily on binge watching Bill videos. And there are heavy, many of those videos in the net, you can tell. And from pretty much everything from the last decade or so, and everything was brilliant, you know, wherever it was it a small club or was it in this Lincoln Center where you would just be totally amazed by the setup alone. It was always wonderfully personal, it was always beautifully played, and you should really watch the comments underneath all these videos on YouTube. I have to admit that working here in the house, I really watch quite a bit YouTube. And I happen to read some of those comments. And there's always coming the moment where people are getting nasty and dreadful, and they write ugly things. And they kind of never do when it's about Bill. And they are, even more than, they are very articulate in their love. You know, they really say beautiful things about your music. And the last thing I want to say before we go into history and music is, I follow you on Instagram, like you maybe also do, and if you don't, I just recommend do it. It's mostly about concerts Bill is going to play, but there was recently one beautiful little post of notes Bill had written. And I hesitate when I say written because it looks like a painting. And again, check it out, look at the comments, because it's red and green, and Bill has a way in writing notes, you know, it's almost like creatures. Very elegant creatures, very light-footed creatures, and they dance over the paper. And people are just totally mesmerized. They want to buy this. You know, they recommend you, wouldn't you like make a little series of just your scores? So this is kind of an odd introduction to Mr. Bill Frisell, but I think tells you something, at least about my dear, dear and limitless love for your music. Thank you. So, I have never done a listening session ever with anybody, which is also, again, a wonderful opportunity to try something out, you know. And it's not me who chose the music, at least not in the beginning, but it was Bill. He was asked, would you tell us a couple of tracks you'd like to play and to talk about a bit? And he generously did. And there was even an order of the songs, and I'm not sure whether we're going to stick to the order, whether you are paying any...
Oh, I'm not... Is that important? But
no, it is not. Maybe it's not, but maybe it's still interesting because, you know, when I started listening to Bill, there was still this foremost idea of this is a jazz musician, and still, of course, he still is a jazz musician. He's an improviser, a genius improviser, but the repertoire has kind of changed, and there's so much melody in it that's maybe not that typically for a complicated jazz stuff. So I was stunned to have you recommend a very nice Sonny Rollins recording of an old Charlie Parker tune. Now's the time. And would you like to say something about what's with you and Sonny Rollins, and what's maybe with you and that track in particular?
He's one of my remains, like, larger than life hero and inspiration for me, and I think about him so often, just the way he's led his life. Like he's got it down to two things. Like after, you know, he's still, how old is he? He's above 90 now, I think. And basically he says, all you really need, if you ask his advice, and I haven't met him, I've never met him.
Really?
So in that way, he still stays like this, you know, like this
enigma kind of.
Yeah, but he's got things distilled down to, like, if a young person asks him, what should I do? He just says, practice. And then he says, follow the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Just try to be how do I improve my music? And he said, it's just try to be a good person. and he's still, you know, he spent his whole life just trying to take the next step. You know, he never was, for all the recognition he got, he was the one that knew he always had further to go, and he's just inspired me in so many ways. You know, some of the song choices that I make, you know, people say, well, how could you play, why do you play this or why do you play that? And, you know, I think of him as a jazz, whatever that word means, but he's in that jazz world, and he inspired me to think about the songs that he plays are the songs from his childhood, and you know, it's whatever he saw in a film or in a movie,
or Caribbean influences coming.
Or his family singing, or when he went to church, or he did this. And you know, there was a time when I was okay. I want to be a jazz guy. I want to, you know, and I would play music that those guys played, but something wasn't completely, I mean, it wasn't honest with my own experience. So thinking about him, it sort of like opened the idea that I grew up in the 50s and 60s. He grew up in the 30s and 40s. You know, I should.
So
be
you would reference the music you grew up with.
Yeah, and so in that way, he really inspired me to just be true to my own experience and not be afraid to show where I come from. You know?
Yeah.
So, and I also, I chose this. I was thinking also, I think most of the things that and now I'm trying to remember what I think most of the things came from a pretty narrow
Exactly.
period of time.
Mid
And
60s.
it was like really intense, like thinking in, 19, what was happening in my life and in the world during this. Like this album was in 1964. And in that year, 1964, for me, I didn't hear this till many years later, but in 1964 was when I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. It was the first time I traveled to New York. I went to the New York World's Fair.
Did you go with your parents or did you go by yourself?
No, it was I played clarinet in a
Yeah.
marching band, and we traveled from Colorado we took the train across the country to New York, and then, so that was, my first, wow, New York City, and then going to this amazing World's Fair. And then I found out that he played at the World's Fair too. So, no, but so many things happened in that year. Like musically, there was, the Beatles, and then John Coltrane's "A Love Supreme" happened that year. But things in the world. Martin Luther King got the Nobel Peace Prize. Cassius Clay, who soon became Muhammad Ali, won the heavyweight championship. The Civil Rights Act was signed that year. And just incredible amount of music was happening. And so I was 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, just at that moment when so much stuff was coming at me.
So this is like not the diary of the 13-year-old, but it's just an
No,
honoring
it's
of
much,
the influence
much
of
later.
Sonny
But then
Rollins.
and then also this was for him. Soon after he had achieved all this recognition and fame, and he decided, in his own mind, he just wasn't all there. So he just kind of disappeared off he's famous for this,
Bridge thing.
going on the Williamsburg Bridge and practicing. For a couple years, he just didn't do any public performance and just was hiding out and practicing. And there's an album called The Bridge that came right
As
after
a consequence of his.
but then this is not long after that, sort of in that burst of energy that was coming from that really intense reevaluation of himself. And you can hear this kind of, whoa. And also he's playing with younger, at the time, Herbie Hancock is playing piano. There's like a pretty
he was
early,
about to go to Miles' quintet.
Yeah, and I think he already was
Yeah.
maybe playing with Miles, and but you can so he's playing with this young piano player that's pushing things. There's a moment in there where maybe I'm talking too much, but
I think we just realized listening session. Listening is a very variable verb, isn't it? We can listen to people talk and we can listen to music, and we will do both, but still.
I mean, there's a moment I love there where you can hear Herbie is really pushing the edges of what maybe people had even heard at that time, and then Sonny comes back in after that and he says, "Oh yeah, how about this?" And it's like he sort of took that energy and just like. So there's a little bit of spirit of friendly competition.
Oh, cool. That's always been the case in a way in the jazz world at least. So we're just going to start this one here.
Oh. Oh, but that's not the. That's the side.
That's the wrong side. So we turn it around. It says now. Well, see how good I've done that prior in my life, turning records, in full flight. No. It's an odd angle. sehr hintergründigen Saxophon. Ist da irgendwie ein Kabel, das da fehlt oder so? Das klingt so...
think there's a problem with the. I don't know if it's the record or
I don't know.
the system.
Ja, ja, es fehlt der Saxophon.
There's not a left and right thing on the.
Yeah, maybe the next one will be easier. Which is like a big jump from Sonny Rollins, but only in terms of style, probably, because historically, as you already mentioned, the music you chose is just all from the first half of the 60s, and I think it's just 63 to 65 or so. So,
This one
here,
was recorded kind of around the same time.
January 64, I think, yeah. So this is a record, Bob Dylan bringing it all back home, which is, I think, known in Europe as Mediterranean Homesick Blues.
Oh,
I was trying to find this record anywhere and I couldn't, and then I read somewhere, this is the American version and the European title has been changed. The cover was still the same though. And the cover in itself is amazing, I find. I mean, there's so many references in it, and even Lotte Lenya, you know, the old Brecht Weil singer is revered here.
But this is more like what I was listening to at the time.
Sure.
And it was, you know, years later that I found Sonny Rollins. But then coming back to this years later, the reason I chose this song, Mr. Tambourine Man, and there's a second guitar player. It's Bob Dylan is playing the like rhythm guitar, and there's a second guitar player whose name is Bruce Langhorne. And I never really noticed, or I must have noticed. It was years later. I said, "Oh, what is that?" There's like this beautiful. It's so subtle, just like a little. There's these like little bell like. And I hope this will both sides
me
of
too.
the story.
No, yeah.
There's this way of accompanying that I realized had such an effect on me. It's very unpredictable, but it's he's improvising.
Obviously,
I mean, to play with Dylan, I think you had to be ready to you didn't know what was going to happen next. So, like Sonny Rollins, same thing. There's a similarity in there's maybe more in common there than people.
Yeah, that's a good point. The immediacy of the delivery of what's to be sung and what's to be
and he
played.
wouldn't do it the same way twice, or he would. And so the people playing with him had to be really on their toes, and you didn't know if is this are we rehearsing, or is this the take, or what is going on, you know? So this guy Bruce Langhorne had this really beautiful way of playing in a kind of an unpredictable. It's super subtle. Like I said, I don't even know if I noticed it when I was a kid, you know. But later I thought, wow, and that really, I can relate to that way of playing with a singer or with anyone.
Yeah. I read a bit about the recording. I think there were 2 major sessions going on, and he would record things over and over, and then sometimes he said it was all first takes, and then, you know, the scholars would find out, no, it wasn't.
Right.
He was, you know, redoing and trying to refine it, and this Bruce, I think, was producing or co-producing, and somehow he felt something was missing, or maybe just, gently giving a little more of a backbone to
he
thing.
Played, and he's another one of these unsung amazing musicians that was around. He played on so many records. I'm talking about Bruce Langhorne. He was in the studios. I think there's so many of these guys that go uncredited and really master beautiful players that, you know, I don't think they put his name's not on here or anything like that. You know,
Even know that,
you have to look it up encyclopedia to find his name, but I have so much respect for those guys that just real working musician people that made everybody else.
Or like the
sound
Motown
good.
musicians, you know, who would record all these, being the backing band for all these stars coming in.
Yeah, all over the place.
Yeah. So.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy, and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I'll come following you. Though I know that evening's empire has returned into sand, vanished from my hand, left me blindly here to stand, but still not sleeping. My weariness amazes me, I am branded on my feet. I have no one to meet, and the ancient empty streets too dead for dreaming. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy, and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I'll come following you. Take me on a trip upon your magic swirling ship. My senses have been stripped, my hands can't feel to grip, my toes too numb to step. Wait only for my boot heels to be wandering. I'm ready to go anywhere, I'm ready for to fade into my own parade. Cast your dancing spell my way, I promise to go under it. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy, and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In a jingle jangle morning, I come following you. Though you might hear laughing, spinning, swinging madly across the sun, it's not aimed at anyone, it's just escaping on the run. And but for the sky, there are no fences facing. And if you hear vague traces of skipping reels of rhyme to your tambourine in time, it's just a ragged clown behind. I wouldn't pay it any mind. It's just a shadow you're seeing that he's chasing. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy, and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I come following you. Take me disappearing through the smoke rings of my mind, down the foggy ruins of time, far past the frozen leaves, the haunted, frightened trees. out to the windy beach, far from the twisted reach of crazy sorrow. Yes, to dance beneath the diamond sky with one hand waving free, silhouetted by the sea, circled by the circus sands, with all memory and fate driven deep beneath the waves. Let me forget about today until tomorrow. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I come following you.
That was when I was in seventh grade. So this is like 1963. I had this English teacher in school, and he would play us
Wow.
Bob Dylan. Yeah, and that's actually where I first heard. So it was his very first albums was in that English class. It was.
What a progressive teacher back then.
Yeah, he was. When I think about it, it's
Yeah.
amazing that he said, listen to the words. It's like poetry, you know.
And did you ever try to kind of decipher it with him, or would he offer any
Well,
kind of
I
interpretation?
guess, yeah. Now that I wish I could remember exactly what was, but he would play these for us in class and tell us to listen to the words, and it's a super hip teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was reminded of when I was really closely paying attention to the second guitar, it was almost like these, these little metal waltzes with the metal
yeah.
tongues, and you turn it
Yeah,
around
yeah,
and around
like a
for
music
children
box or
like a music
something,
box,
yeah.
exactly. And it adds to this kind of never-ending kind of storytelling. And the second thing that came to my mind, you said that you have been wondering why people would always say, "Oh, Bill, you are so personal when you play your guitar." And you said, because all I'm trying to do is to phrase like the singers who have maybe sung the song I'm playing now. And I wonder, did Dylan somehow inspire you in his special way of phrasing, and as I said, this immediacy and urgency that he had, and it was also very loose at times. Would he inspire or infuse your phrasing?
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I still listen to him. I mean, I listened to him really a lot back then, and I've always. He's someone that seems to it's held up throughout my, some people that I was listening to during that time. I'll go back and I say, man, what was I?
Guilty pleasures.
But with him, it's I continue to find new things, and.
Musically and in terms of the lyrics, or would you?
Yeah, just the whole thing.
Yeah, what a character. I mean, you think he also deserved the Nobel, didn't he?
Sure, yeah. Him, yeah, wow. And I was saying, yeah, Martin Luther King got it too. So.
Yeah, he got it for peace and he got it for literature, so. Now we are coming to something again completely different from the same time, more or less. And we are getting into the serious guitar business now. And I have heard so many stories of yours about Wes Montgomery. And you, of course, must tell us the story that goes around the track we're going to play from Tequila, which has a brilliant cover, I find. It's a real artistic still life guitar with half-emptied tequila bottle, limes and everything, and the knife to cut the limes. And there is one track on it which you choose. And please tell us a bit about
this was such an important moment for me. Again, this is actually what this was what led me back to discovering Sonny Rollins, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Or this was what I think of as sort of opening this whole. I'd never heard of him, and I was playing. I mentioned that I played clarinet in this marching band, and in the school music program, I played clarinet in the concert band and the orchestra, and then I played guitar. I was in bands playing. At the time I heard this, I was really getting more into blues and R&B, and I played in a kind of a soul music band or whatever you call it, and there was a talent show at the school, and the band director knew me from the clarinet, but he knew I played guitar, and he said, there's these girls were doing this dance thing to this song.
Like a choreographed dance.
Yeah, to bump it, and they put the record on, and then they do this dance. And he said it would be so much better if we had live music. So do you think you could learn that song? And he gave me this record, and I went home and what is this? I'd never heard that sound before. And luckily that song I could sort of approximate it, just figure it out from the record. But it.
Approximate what?
I mean, just I could come close to playing
it the way you did back then.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Enough so that it was
recognizable.
The talent show was a big success anyway. But but hearing that was like, wait a minute, it's time that's where I decided I gotta find me a teacher and get serious. Because then I went out and bought some more Wes Montgomery records, and it was like, whoa, wait a second, this is a whole nother world of stuff. And then it's weird, like on that Sonny Rollins record, it's Ron Carter's playing bass, and on this Wes Montgomery record, Ron Carter's playing bass. And so I'd go to actually it was like a drugstore at the time. You could get really cheap Blue Note records and Riverside records, and they called them cutouts, I guess, ones that had
with little.
And so I went and I said, oh wow, there's a Wes Montgomery one. I got another one, and then I got a Lee Morgan record. I got a Sam Rivers record. I got a Kenny Burrell record, and then I started noticing, wait a minute, Ron Carter's on this one, and Ron Carter's on that one, and Ron Carter's on that one, and again that 1964, Herbie Hancock is on that Sonny record, and with Ron Carter's on that. They were both playing with Miles Davis at the time.
And Wayne is on that one.
What?
Wayne Shorter.
Oh, on which?
Isn't he on the Wes Montgomery?
Oh no, I don't think he's on this one.
Oh no, he's on the other one.
But I mean, there's all these. You start following the thread, like, oh wow, this guy plays with that guy, and then that guy plays with this guy, and it's like this kaleidoscope just opened up, and for me, that's that one song. And thank goodness it's basically just it's like one chord almost, the whole song. It's just
a modal one.
Ron Carter's just going doom, doom, doom,
Yeah. It is very cool.
But it still sounds like Ron Carter playing bass still.
Absolutely. And maybe we should talk briefly about Wes Montgomery, because I mean he was not a trained musician at all. I mean he was working as a welder in a factory, which I find utterly admiring. You work with fire, you work with sparks, and endanger your hands every day. And he would come home, and they had 6 children, and he would insist on practicing his guitar with an amp. And the neighbors were complaining, why would he play so loud? And his wife really tried to kind of tame him somehow and said, what about turning the volume down? And that was not an option for him. And that's what he said back then was why he discovered this, this thumb playing with the hand, going on the strings to make it a little softer. And then he did all this octave stuff with his thumb.
Just the technical part is
elaborate.
Astounding. And no, I still can't. And now that was the other thing, I never got to see him play. There was a concert, this touring, it was like a Newport Jazz Festival that was touring the country, and they were coming to Colorado, and he was part of this. It was supposed to be Wes Montgomery and Dionne Warwick and Cannonball Adderley and Thelonious Monk and Gary Burton. That was the program. And I didn't know who any of those other people, Wes Montgomery, I gotta go. So my father got us tickets, and we had the tickets, and then he passed away. Right?
Just weeks before.
Yeah, just
in
right.
In the summer of '67? When was that?
68.
68, 17 you were then. Yeah.
And, but I said, well, let's go to the concert anyway. So I got to hear Thelonious Monk play, and I got to hear Cannonball and Dionne Warwick and Gary Burton. That was another big, like, mind-blowing thing. There was so much. I mean, my brain was literally exploding,
Every day with all this music coming in.
And you mentioned Jimi Hendrix. I had just seen Jimi Hendrix a few months before that, and then seeing that, and then I saw Charles Lloyd with it just
with
everything
Keith already, with Keith Jarrett and the Forest Flower Time.
It just within these, going from the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show to hearing all that other stuff within 2 or 3 years, it's like.
And one must say that jazz was still incredibly hip back then, wasn't it? And was made hip again with people like Wes, probably, playing this amplified guitar.
Yeah, it was like you could. When a new record came out, it was like you would see the whole history moving. With a Miles Davis record, remember Miles Smiles, and then Miles in the Sky, and then every time a new record was like you'd see the whole
movement in giant steps, literally. Yeah, that's true. So let's give it a listen here. This Bumpin' on Sunset. Ray Barretto on congas. minimalism of Wes Montgomery. Does this track really stand the test of the time?
For me, it
For you, it
does. It still does. And then it was a few years ago, they put out a box set of, all these outtakes, and that was really interesting to hear. You realize he was just making this up on this, the way he plays these, I don't know if they're 8-bar or he plays these, he had this sense of form when it was just improvising, but a very clear sense of structure. Because when you listen to the takes that weren't used, it's like completely different, but he'll play these
Same arcs, kind of.
yeah, and so this one you can tell, well, let's just, I don't know what they said, but let's do this. And then Klaus Ogerman, added these little
Violins
string
and
parts and
cellos,
stuff.
yeah.
But it's so clearly defined, the form, and you really hear, also you hear that when he's playing more complex structure, if he's playing Erigen, Sonny Rollins song,
Sonny Rollins,
or if he's playing some other much more harmonically involved song, his sense of the overall structure is so
It's very
clear.
developed, I find. Now we come to something, again, very different.
Yikes.
Cecily Beach Boys. Surfer Girl. You opted for Surfer Girl.
I mean, that one again, we're going a little bit earlier than that time
63,
period. And this was actually the first, not this album, but I bought the first record I ever bought with my own money. It had Surfer Girl on one side and Little Deuce Coupe on the other side.
So it was a single.
Yeah, 45 with those two songs. And again, to me it holds up. I don't know how it'll sound to anybody else here, but that song, there's so much in that song. Again, I love this bit. This is before hearing the Beatles, but it was a real band that had this. There was something about just the way they sang together in harmony like that was so. I was just mesmerized by those records.
And the historians say that this was the first record that was really basically made by Brian Wilson, and he would compose most of the stuff, and he would do all the arrangements. And this seems to be the only not up-tempo number, like the only ballad on this record. Surfer Girl.
Made my heart come on.
can't beat the Beach Boys, can you? They are like the ABBA of their time. So we go a little off of Bill's list here for just 1 minute. It is needed. I hope I find this here. I used to be pretty good in cueing. Yeah, this is just incredibly lovely, isn't it? I mean, And then
I
you have
don't
this
know.
pedal steel guitar going behind, and it's almost a bit like, I mean, it's way more refined, of course, than what this musician did with the Dylan track, but it so beautifully complements what you are playing. And
Yeah, that's Greg Lease.
yeah, I
playing.
know, it's
And-
your old buddy Greg Lees.
And actually, Tony Shearer is playing bass, and Kenny Wallace, who will be here.
On this weekend,
Yeah.
playing with you. So this is one of the interesting things, maybe, that you really have this core group of artists, musicians, friends you are keep coming back playing with, no matter what repertoire, I would say, almost. You know, you can play with Kenny and John Zorn and have big fun, and yet then you do this totally song-oriented stuff. You've done this wonderful John Lennon recording with these guys, with Jenny Scheinman on violin as an addition. I mean, what could one say rather than making music with friends? And
Well, that's what it's always been like. That again, going back to those first moments. You know, when I first got an electric guitar, you know, I saved up my money, and my friend across the street had one, and then within about, you know, we learned 3 songs, and then we were playing for a party we had a band. You know, if you owned the instrument, you were automatically in a band.
eligible for a band, yeah.
So, and that's pretty much all I couldn't figure out anything else to do with myself ever since. So that's all I've done. Just play with my friends, you know.
I wonder, should we just give it a listen, this long Lee Morgan track? Because
okay.
yeah, that's the last of the records you suggested. Search for the New
yeah,
Land.
And that was another one that was, I think I found it in this Walgreens store for 79 cents or something, and again, I think that was 64 also. There's so many things were done in that year that it's...
Yeah, I've written it down somewhere. Yeah, February '64. One day,
and
they recorded it all in one day.
And that was, you know, there's some people that I heard for the first time on this. Well, it's the first time I heard Lee Morgan. It's the first time I heard Wayne Shorter. It's the first time I heard Billy Higgins. It's
You've been mentioning Ron Carter so much, and I know you've been playing with him, but it took some decades before you finally met, right?
oh yeah. Well, I actually met him. Well, I took after you know, I heard that Wes Montgomery record right when I was in high school, and that was sort of this, okay, I gotta find myself a teacher. So by some miracle, there's this man named Dale Bruning who had recently moved to Colorado from Philadelphia and brought with him all this knowledge. And he was friends with a lot of Philadelphia guys, you know, and but also Jim Hall. He was the one that introduced me to Jim Hall.
Legendary
And
guitar player.
so then a few years later, I was able to take some lessons with Jim Hall. I would go see Jim Hall play with Ron Carter. This is like in 1970, 71 or something like that. So he actually, I'm sure, well, I told Ron much later, but he wouldn't remember that. But I was a kid, you know, I shook his hand 53 years ago or however long ago that is.
Oh, I know. Yeah, back then it was you.
But anyway, but then it was many, many years later. My friend Joey Barron, the drummer, had this idea to do an album. He wanted to get Ron, and he got Arthur Blythe to play saxophone. It was a quartet, and it was like we didn't really believe that Ron would do it. He just thought, well, we might as well just contact him and see if. And Joey just tried to. He really showed the proper respect that Ron, he made the situation correct, and he asked him if he would do this recording, and Ron agreed to do it, and it was like, what? He said yes, and we were just terrified to play with him, and then but somehow he liked it, and then he called me to play on his record, and then I called him to play on my record, and then I've gotten to play with him quite a bit. I can't believe that, when I look at it, this stuff that we've been listening to, and it's like all these dreams have come true,
Yeah, playing with the old heroes, but also, having your own heroes or people who have become heroes for others already, which is that's the course of life. I mean,
yeah,
it's
it's amazing. Music is an incredible thing,
It's getting deeper and deeper. Yeah, I would like to talk briefly about the guitar because the instrument that you had back then in Colorado was this GS or CS 175 already, this half acoustic Gibson guitar, which you kept for quite a while.
Yeah, that was actually, I bought that from my teacher, Dale Bruning.
Okay.
I had a Fender guitar, and then I got this kind of a cheap imitation of a Gibson guitar, and then Dale, I got that guitar, this Gibson ES 175 from Dale. So you're talking about this, I can't believe that, but that guitar I played so much, and it was, it was sort of like handed down from my teacher. It was kind of the special instrument, and there was a period of years where that was the only instrument I owned. And then time goes on, and I start playing louder. I got a solid body guitar, and I was moving from Boston to Europe, and I said, I'm not really playing that guitar. I sold it, and I moved to Belgium. And as soon as it was almost like I got on the airplane, and I was like, oh no, why did I sell that guitar? I got it from my teacher, But anyway, it was just gone. I sold it in Boston for
$400.
Yeah, $400. And then I think maybe a year or so later, I kind of wondered where it might be, but there was no internet, or there was no nothing. Anyway, it was just gone. I never was to find it again. But then, when was this? It's just not that long ago. I met someone who worked for Gibson Guitars, and I told him this story about, I wish I could, because then when the internet started happening, every once in a while I'd look on there and see, I wonder if, because it was a kind of a particular, there were certain, like the wood, a couple little things that were unique to that one guitar. So I thought I would Google search, with a maple neck and blah, 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 and nothing would ever show up. And then, but I happened to mention it to this guy that worked for Gibson, and I also found, like, a number of years ago, my mother passed away, and I found this little piece of paper that had the serial number of the guitar. So I had the serial number, and I gave the guy the serial number, and not thinking I would get the guitar, but I thought maybe, he might know somebody at the factory, like they would remember when they made it or something, just to have. And then about a year later, he calls me up and he said, "You're not going to believe this, that he found it in a music store in Seattle where I was living at the time, which is really weird because it had
How
traveled
interesting.
across the country.
So you never
And
know, we'll never know probably, did it
and
ever
I
leave?
couldn't. They didn't know. They got it from some music store in some small town, and I never was able to find out who had it or how. But it was. I couldn't believe, and it hadn't been. It had been played a lot, but it had some of the same. Like it had a little piece of cork under this thing that I had stuck in there. It was like.
Even that was still there?
Yeah, it was the same as when I had left it. And so I got it back after it had been gone for 30 years, I guess.
Did the shop owner know that this was kind of your crown jewel coming up again, and
Well,
would he charge you a little more than he would
Well,
maybe
no,
do?
I mean, it definitely cost more than $400, I'll tell you.
I bet. And now you play it again, or
Well,
is it just like...
I don't play. I play it a little bit at home, but I don't really travel with it or anything.
I must speak a little more with you about guitars. I love that story so much, Bill. It's so you, I find, You're just patiently waiting in 30 years after, and you do just the little things that are needed to just push it to the amount that you can influence things happening.
But it's strange, how it, my mother passing away and then finding this little piece of paper that I had written, why was that there, And just to have the serial number was wild.
I'm curious, Bill, with how many guitars are you traveling right now?
One.
See, I'm so amazed because whenever I see you on stage, you never change the instrument. You always have different guitars probably in the show, but you never have like a roadie coming in and handing you over. Now is this special model coming in? Now for this track, I definitely need this other guitar. Not with you. You just have this one instrument, and this is wonderful. And you do the entire tour. You've been playing in Prague before and other places. How do you choose before you leave the US? This time I'm going to play the entire tour with this guitar.
Well, no, I mean, part of it is just that if I, at home, I have piles of guitars.
I reckon you will.
No, it's just the traveling. I just take what is most practical and what I can.
Sure, but are you obsessing before you decide, today, this time I'll take this white Fender?
I guess
you do obsess quite a bit.
A little bit, and then I just give in to whatever it is, and then I'll play that.
And does it happen at times that you sit in the hotel room and say, I wish I had this mint green Fender here?
Oh yeah. No, I do that all the time.
I see.
But no, and then there's something to be said about just putting energy into one instrument. Like that's, again, Jim Hall, he basically had one guitar for
everything.
Toward the later years, he had a couple more, but he would get rid of one and then get another, but he basically would just play one guitar. So all his energy was, there's definitely something to be said about that, like just, because the instruments take on I've really noticed that. It's amazing what, I've gotten to play a few guitars that were, well, it doesn't have to be a famous person. A guitar that someone has really played a lot, you can feel there's so much energy and bodily fluids that go into. I mean, I got to play Tal Farlow's guitar they had it at a music store in New York, and it was so weird. It was like my fingers were they were being pulled along these pathways that
He had already.
It's like, wait, why am I doing this? But it's like he had spent so many hours on. I played Lonnie Johnson's guitar. I played I didn't play it. Freddie Green's guitar, I touched it. And you know, I got to play Jim Hall's guitar. Anyway, it's kind of
I find
out.
it so interesting that you say that the guitar, which seems to be like an more or less finished object of wood and steel strings, changes. And I remember hearing Ralph Towner say, if you give me your guitar for 2 weeks, it will be a different instrument when I give it back to you.
Yeah.
And that just echoes what you say. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
amazing, huh?
And then, you know, I have all these instruments, and then I think I probably sound pretty much the same on all of them anyway. It's something, in my own mind, there's all these subtle, that's my excuse for having so many, because each one will have like some kind of overtone or something you'll hear. It'll respond in a different way, and it'll lead you to some other place, and then I'll go back to another guitar and I can find the same thing in that one, and it's like they start talking to each
Resembling
other.
each other more and more, so.
Yeah, or you learn something from one that you can bring to another one.
Because I was just wondering, maybe for the recordings, you might bring more than just one guitar. Because you
Sometimes,
just want to
yeah.
have that specific overtone in that
Yeah,
track.
maybe. Then, or if I'm home and I going into a studio, if I'm in New York, and then I can bring more than one, maybe. But
Shall we go and have a listen here? So, Search for the New Land, Lee Morgan. Grant Green on guitar. That's a long rondo. I'm so sorry. It's beautiful, I know, but still. Bill, when you were listening to this, did you just go with it and try to play the Grand Green solo note by note, or how did you?
No, I mean I used to. Not that one particular. Yeah, I would sort of play along, mimic. You know, boy, yeah, not in a very
Orderly way.
yeah.
I've been asking myself when Bill Frisell gets in the airplane to Hamburg or in the car and knows he has like 4 shows coming up, do you know somehow what you are going to play on these nights with these people? How much of it do you know and how much you don't?
Not quite sure. I mean, some of the, let's see, I mean, with Harmony,
The record.
Petra Hayden and Luke Berkman and Hank Roberts, that's maybe more arranged. You know, I'm not sure. And now we've been doing that for quite a few years, so we have a good body of stuff. We made one album, but since the album, we've done quite a bit of touring and playing and adding things. But it's a little more structured than some of the other things I'll be doing. You know, there's a couple of them that Luke Bergman has done these more specific arrangements,
Which you can't really change that much, probably. Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of room for things to change, but and then with, you know, I'm excited to play with Emmanuel tomorrow. Like, I mean, it's with Rudy and Thomas, my trio that I play with a lot, and then Emmanuel comes in and just like, whoa, what is going on now? You know, it's like we've done a few things with him where it's, I mean, in some ways it feels like he's been with us forever. But then it's like a total surprise what might happen. And then with Ambrose, I don't know what'll happen.
Because that's just the two of you, right?
Yeah, and I mean and then after that is with Tony Shear and Kenny Walson, who you heard there, and Rudy and Thomas, all
Which is
together in the same place.
The double trio.
And we've been doing that recently a little bit, and that's something I'd been wanting to do for years, because I play with both of those trios, and I've played, I played trio with Tony and Rudy, and I've played trio with Tony and Kenny, and I've played trio with Rudy and Thomas, and I've
all
played
possible combinations.
Yeah,
yes.
and I've played duo with all of them at some point or other, and for a long time I just wonder what would happen if they were all in the same.
Yeah, I mean, in my little fan mind, it's just a super group, you know. You're coming up with two drummers, which is already something quite special, and two bassists, and then the Bill in the middle. It'll be quite something, I guess.
No, that's been so great with that, because it's, again, there's no, well, so that's the other thing. Was recent. I don't know if Duke Ellington said it or Jack DeJohnette said it or somebody said, if you put a band together and if you have to tell somebody what to do, you've got the wrong person in the band. And I've never had to, I mean, the reason I have all these, I want to surround myself with these people is, I don't want to I want to be surprised by what they do. And I mean, I look to them more as my teachers. I mean, I'm not really the leader so much, it's the reason I have them there is I want to learn from them. So I'm not trying to show them anything, because they already know everything that I could do. So
we so can see that this is not a false modesty that you're displaying here. This is just, I think, really
No, it's
your
true. I mean,
so.
There's nothing I could tell them that they don't.
You speak through the music and you converse.
Yeah, I mean,
with
we just play, and
yeah.
It's amazing to get to be with these people. So.
Bill, if I was a magician, I would stretch time now. And we would sit here for another 1 or 2 hours, because you know what I did? I brought like a pack of your records with me, and we could spend an entire new session on only these things, And that includes, and you just have to show it to you once, it includes, of course, the very first record you made, for ECM at least, which is this one here.
Oh, wow.
With Eberhard. You can just flip through it and just...
Yikes.
So this is Eberhard Weber, German bass player, Fluid Russell. That was the first time you were playing for an ECM record.
Yeah.
And this somehow led to the record I was mentioning in the beginning of our conversation, In Line, your solo record with some help of Arild Andersen in some tracks. Very beautiful cover. I've seen there is a CD edition that doesn't have that cover anymore. It's a blue one now. So
yeah. Uh-oh, I had a mustache. There's a lot of these where I had a mustache.
Yeah. There's a lot of, and you know what? I also found this wild one.
Oh yeah.
Remember this one?
I remember
Vernon
that.
Reid. This is just 2 guitars, and it's guitar synth, and it's really a wild music. And should you ever get hold of this, go for it. And then there's some more Bill Frisell. And then there's, because I just wanted to show you when you were small, wasn't there this record with you? This one?
Yeah.
Is that you?
I haven't changed that much. I learned how to zip up my pants, though.
This is so funny. I mean, this pants and this confidence and this big, huge smile, and then this, whoa, okay. It's one of my top covers of your millions and wonderful records. Dear Bill, we have already been over time here.
Well,
It was an incredible pleasure to sit here with you.
Oh, thanks for
And I really thank you
doing
for your comments and your stories and for just being you.
No, it was really fun. That was great.
Thank you, people, for listening. Thank you so much.